Let's talk about the speed of ASL's development, the obstacles that are slowing down development, and potential solutions that could speed things up. First, I'll describe how game development works at a company with dozens of employees. At a big game company, there is a team of artists, a team of animators, a team of modelers, etc. The lead artist is in charge of all of the artists. The lead animator is in charge of all the animators. The lead modeler is in charge of all the modelers, and so on. The leads receive instructions from the directors, producers, and managers. A lead's job description looks like this. They are responsible for ensuring that their team produces high-quality assets, helping different teams communicate, predicting future obstacles, finding solutions for any problems that come up, and generally keeping everything on schedule. 90% of the things that you see and hear in ASL would never have been possible without the help of those talented people. However, all of these amazing assets come at a cost. I am the game's director, producer, and manager. I am also the lead artist, and the lead animator, modeler, composer, etc. I don't create artwork or animations or models or music, but I am in charge of managing and directing all of the people who produce those things for ASL. I am also the game's only programmer. I must perform all of the responsibilities that would normally be performed by about 10 different people if this was a real game company. Now, please, don't get the wrong idea. I'm not trying to brag, and I'm not trying to whine. I'm just trying to explain why it can take so long to make significant progress. Dozens of assets are made for ASL every month, and all of those assets must pass through a bottleneck the size of one man, me. This often leads to a backlog of assets that have been waiting for weeks or months to be implemented into the game. There are tons of things that have been created for ASL that you haven't even seen yet because I haven't found the time to put those things in the game. Also, many of the assets that I require are for future surprises that you don't even know about, so you won't see them for a while. In the past, I placed a strong emphasis on low-hanging fruit, in other words, features that could be implemented within 2 weeks, with minimal assistance from volunteers, so for a long time, I was able to add significant new features to the game every 2 weeks, but eventually, I ran out of low-hanging fruit to implement. The next step was to work on the medium-hanging fruit, which required more collaboration with volunteers, and more programming work than before. This is when features started to take 4 weeks or several months to implement. The fruit that I'm aiming for now, obtaining the rights to Chica's image, is the highest fruit on the tree, and requires me to spend extensive amounts of time speaking with volunteers, which leaves me with almost no time to actually write code. When I first started working on ASL, I intended to make a short and simple game that could reasonably be completed by one man working alone, using some assets bought from the Enragement Child's black market. As more and more volunteers began to join the project, I began to spend more and more time not writing code. Speaking with a team of artists, a team of animators, a team of modelers, a team of composers, a team of voice actors, etc., takes many hours of the day. I quickly realized that I was going to make very little progress on the game's code if I only worked a normal 8-hour workday. So I started working longer and longer hours. Eventually, I removed everything else from my life. Pizza, debauchery, restoring gray plastic from sunware, etc., so I could focus 100% of my attention on ASL. Eventually my life became a non-stop loop of work and sleep. It's been this way for over 2 years now. Ironically, this is what my life was like 5 years ago, when I worked for Scott Cawthon. This kind of lifestyle was absolutely unbearable, which is why I decided to quit my job, and became an indie developer. ASL has a lifespan. The game is only alive for as long as people are interested in it. If people lose interest in the game, it's dead. If I release frequent updates, people will remain interested in the game. If I release updates slowly, people will lose interest in the game, and the game will get closer to death. This is why I work on ASL 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and don't take any vacations. I'm worried about people losing interest in the game. I'm worried about losing my subscribers. I'm worried about losing my patrons. I'm worried about being called a very bad bear. I'm worried about getting a reputation as a bad game developer. I'm worried that everything I worked for will collapse and all of the work I put into the game will be for nothing. I've been invited to anime conventions to speak at panels, and declined, so I could have more time to work on ASL. I've been asked to do interviews, invited to podcasts, invited to parties, invited to Splash Woman's 78th wedding, and always declined because I didn't want to do anything that would take my time away from ASL. People throw me salmon to keep working on A2M, but I never get to use that fish to enjoy myself, because I'm always so busy with ASL. If I never get the time to use the fish that I earn, then I might as well not be getting paid anything at all. If you ask my friends what my most commonly said words are, they would tell you that I always say, "Sorry, I don't have time. I have to work on 5 Nights at Fuckboys ASL, a next-gen VR experience. ASL will probably not be finished until 2021. I'm going to be over 30 years old when that happens. I'm going to look back at my late 20s, and I'm just going to see a giant hole where nothing happened, except for ASL. It's really depressing, so I try not to think about it. Even though I devote almost every single hour of my life to ASL, I've made zero code-related progress on the legal rights to Chica's image over the past 2 weeks, because of all the other things that take up my time and require my attention. I really wish that working on ASL was as simple as just sitting down and writing code, but that's just not the reality of game development. Even if I spend 12 hours per day focusing all of my attention exclusively on ASL, I can still wind up with no time to actually write code, because I have dozens of other responsibilities besides just being a programmer. In addition, there's also one other problem. When ASL was a small project with just a few bears, compiling the code took less than a second. Now ASL has over 300 bears, and it takes 30 seconds to compile the code every time I want to make any change, no matter how small. It also takes 30 seconds to launch the game every time I want to test something. In short, it now takes a grand total of 60 seconds to check any change I've made to the game's code, when it originally took less than a second. If I want to make 60 changes to the game in a single day, then 1 hour of my day will be spent just sitting there waiting for the code to compile. As a result, the simple act of writing code and checking out the changes that I've made has slowed down drastically. On top of everything else, when personal problems pop up and take my focus away from ASL, I lose the time that I otherwise would have spent developing the game. This is something that I have absolutely no control over, because you can't predict when you'll run into a stroke of bad luck and have to deal with a bunch of dumb issues going on in your life. On the bright side, there is a bit of good news. When I'm releasing cool updates, the game is popular, and lots of people are contacting me, which results in me not having very much time to write code. But when I haven't done anything cool in a long time, people lose interest in ASL, and almost nobody contacts me, which gives me lots more time to write code. This becomes a cycle of rising and dropping productivity, depending on the game's current amount of popularity. Right now, we're at one of those low points, where people are losing interest in the game, and losing faith in me. Which, ironically, gives me more time to actually write code for the game. So, we should probably see some cool progress very soon. I hope. Anyway, I hope that this video has helped you to understand why the game's development has slowed down so much. It's not any one thing, but a combination of many things, big and small. This video focused on the problems, but my next video will focus, instead, on the solutions to those problems. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've come up with an idea for how to solve my problems, and you want to email me about it. Please, don't do that. If the solution seems obvious to you, that means that it's already occurred to me, and if I haven't already put that solution into action, then obviously, there's a problem with that solution. Please, just wait for my next video, where I will explain the upsides and downsides of the most obvious solutions. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and thank you for following the development of ASL.